It begins in silence. No roaring flesh, no rushing water, only the still, earthy breath of a civilization untouched by modern pipes. Thousands of years before the first porcelain bowl gleamed beneath a bathroom light, our ancestors were already solving a problem so intimate, so universal, that it tied all of humanity together: the need to relieve oneself. But what's truly chilling isn't just how they did it, it's how far ahead they were. Our story winds back through the smoke and dust of time to the Indus Valley, 25,500 years before today. Picture it, a labyrinth of baked brick buildings, their straight-lined streets laid with eerie precision. These weren't mud huts strewn at random. These were cities planned with a level of intelligence that makes even modern planners pause. And among their greatest feats, toilets. Not symbolic ones, not ceremonial, real, functioning toilets within homes. Some multi-storied, and each connected to a vast sewage network. Clay pipes directed waste away from living quarters, running through hidden underground drains. Water was poured in by hand, initiating the flush. Primitive, yes, but shockingly effective. They even had manholes and maintenance access points. Can you imagine, in a time when most of the world still squatted in bushes or behind huts, the people of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa lived in cities with better sanitation than some 19th-century European towns? Yet this advanced system didn't evolve into something grander. It vanished, forgotten, swallowed by time. And with its disappearance, the world regressed. For thousands of years, other civilizations would attempt, fumble, or ignore what the Indus Valley had already mastered. From the ruins of India, we sail to the sands of Egypt, where stone monuments kissed the sky and shadows fell long across the Nile. The Egyptians are remembered for mummies and pharaohs, for curses and cosmic obsession, but their toilet story is no less haunting. They were obsessed with cleanliness. In a world without plumbing, they adapted with stunning creativity. The elite perched upon carved limestone seats placed over pots of sand. When filled, the contents were manually removed, often by slaves or servants. A quiet humiliation, swallowed in the rhythms of daily labor. The poor. They squatted over holes, simple wooden frames above pits, rudimentary, exposed, but no less essential. And yet, there was order in their discomfort. Bathing was done with hand-poured water collected into basins. That same water, once dirty, was saved and fed to plants. It's as if the ancient Egyptians understood something we've forgotten. Nothing goes to waste if the cycle is respected. But this respect wasn't always hygienic by modern terms. Imagine the scent of a pot filled with sun-baked human excrement, the grains of hot sand absorbing what it could, or a servant lifting it, eyes lowered, carrying away someone else's shame. No one spoke of it, but everyone knew. Sanitation wasn't just physical, it was social, emotional, even spiritual. And the rituals surrounding it, like the rest of ancient Egypt, were soaked in symbolism and silence. But no twist in our tale is darker or more unsettling than what awaited in the East. In the heart of the Han Dynasty, 2 centuries before the Common Era, innovation met raw practicality. The Chinese didn't just dispose of waste, they fed it. Deep in the countryside, toilets were connected to pigpens. No, not adjacent, not nearby, directly above. The waste fell straight down from the human latrine into the pig's trough. Yes, the pigs ate it. And the pigs, once fattened, were slaughtered and fed back to the people. The circle of life, complete. It's repulsive to modern sensibilities, but back then, it was brilliant, nothing wasted. Every part of the cycle fed the next, from the human stomach, to the pig's mouth, to the farmer's field. Even the excrement, once mixed with pig droppings, became powerful fertilizer. But ask yourself this: what happens when the line between food and filth begins to blur? What if the very thing that sustains us is also the thing that poisons us? The Chinese farmers danced on this razor's edge for centuries, gambling health against hunger. And while the elite in Chinese cities crafted beautiful ceramic chamber pots, glazed and ornate, the countryside survived on a brutal efficiency that makes modern zero-waste movements look like child's play. This isn't just the history of toilets. This is the story of what people do when comfort is impossible, when survival demands creativity in the most uncomfortable corners of existence. As history crept forward, so did the complexity of how humanity treated its waste and its dignity. The Romans built their empire with stone and blood, but their approach to sanitation was eerily casual. Their public toilets were large, open rooms where dozens sat shoulder to shoulder, defecating in full view of one another. There were no stalls, no barriers, just stone benches with rounded holes, lined up over a channel of running water. Beneath, a constant stream washed the waste away, an engineering feat. Yes, but the experience utterly raw. A sponge on a stick, soaked in vinegar, was shared among all users. Used, washed, used again. No privacy, no personal space. Only the sound of conversation, the stench of bodies, and the scrape of sandals on stone. Defecation became social, public, even political. It wasn't uncommon to discuss the affairs of state, to hear gossip, to laugh, argue, or scheme all while relieving oneself. A Roman toilet wasn't just a place of waste, it was a gathering space. Imagine that. History, policy, and hygiene all colliding in one humid chamber of echoes and effluence. What lingers in these accounts isn't just disgust, it's awe. At how deeply intertwined our relationship with waste has always been with class, culture, and control. In castles across medieval Europe, the nobility perched high above the earth, their chamber pots emptied into cesspits, their waste dropped from latrine shafts that opened directly into the moat below. These were called garderobes, named for the robes hung near them, believed to be protected from fleas by the rising ammonia. Think of that. They thought the stench kept the pests away. Meanwhile, commoners defecated in trenches, in shared wooden privies, or simply wherever they could. And beneath the surface, beneath the glamour of stone keeps and royal banners, was a festering, using network of filth, but no one dared challenge it. Because where there was waste, there was power. Who could afford privacy? Who could command a servant to remove their waste? Who could demand that even their excrement be treated with respect? It all depended on who you were. This is what toilets tell us, not just how we live, and so we descend deeper, not just into history, but into the very underbelly of civilization itself. Because what Part 1 revealed was only the surface. The stones, the clay, the clever channels that guided filth away from sight. But what lurked beneath, in the shadows of castles, in the back alleys of plague-ridden cities, in the foul-smelling corners of once great empires, was something far more disturbing. Something no architect could design away. The relationship between humanity and its own waste has always been about more than sanitation. It's about shame, control, disease. Power, and in the medieval world, that truth festered like rot in the walls. Picture a towering fortress, its elegant facade hiding a secret chute that plunges downward, straight from the royal chamber to the moat outside. That chute, called a garderobe, isn't lined with plumbing or stone tiles. It's a narrow hole carved into the side of the castle wall, through which excrement falls freely into the stagnant water below. Imagine the stench, the clouds of flies, the unholy mix of waste and decay surrounding the base of a structure meant to symbolize strength and purity. Now consider this. That same moat was often part of the castle's defense, a filthy barrier between royalty and rebellion, a literal ring of human filth designed to keep invaders at bay. And in more ways than one, it worked. But the tragedy wasn't just the smell, it was the disease. In a time before germ theory, filth was omnipresent, seeping into food, water, skin, and lungs. Medieval cities were suffocated by their own excrement. Streets ran brown after rain. Chamber pots were emptied from second-story windows onto unsuspecting pedestrians below. And the phrase "gardilou," a shouted warning meaning "watch out," became common in the alleys of Europe as human waste splashed onto cobblestone. People ducked, or they didn't, and the consequences could be fatal. Rats feasted on the refuse, fleas feasted on the rats. And when the plague came, it didn't knock politely. It burst through the gates with the full force of rotting, unburied waste. Some historians argue that the Black Death killed nearly half of Europe's population because of toilets, or rather, the lack of them. The death toll wasn't just the result of disease. It was the result of centuries of neglect, arrogance, and a failure to understand what the ancients once knew. That waste isn't something to ignore. It's something to master. Even the Renaissance, heralded as the rebirth of art, science, and thought, was not immune to filth. The elegant palaces of Florence and Paris were often filled with unbearable stench. Courtyards doubled as dumping grounds. Servants carried waste through opulent halls in covered pots. And beneath the lavish tapestries and golden ceilings were floors soaked in the subtle scent of rot. The higher one stood in society, the less one touched their own waste. It became a hierarchy of hygiene. The king had a groom of the stool, a man whose full-time job was to assist with the royal bowel movements. Think about that. Not a guard, not a scribe, a stool groom. A man trained in understanding the monarch's digestion, in wiping, washing, and recording the consistency of royal excrement for health purposes. That was the level of power at play. Even waste was political. But not every culture chose shame. In Japan, for instance, sanitation evolved along an entirely different path. By the 8th century, the Japanese were already using systems that directed waste from urban homes to rural farms. Farmers would actually pay to collect night soil, a euphemism for human excrement because they knew its value. There was no disgust, no taboo, just utility. Buckets were placed in homes and picked up regularly. Contracts were drawn, cities profited from it. Waste became currency, fertilizer became food, food became waste again. The cycle was seamless, efficient, and disturbingly elegant. Yet even in this cycle, there were dark consequences. In tightly packed Edo-period cities, where thousands shared narrow wooden walkways and dense courtyards, any disruption to the waste collection cycle meant disaster, earthquakes, floods, fires. Each one sent rivers of waste pouring through the streets. Epidemics followed. Always. Because no matter how cleverly society danced with its own filth, one truth echoed louder than the rest: you can't run from what comes out of you. Fast forward to the Gilded Age of Victorian London, where gaslights flickered and steam trains roared, but underneath it all was a cesspool waiting to explode. The River Thames, once a source of life, had become an open sewer. Human waste, animal carcasses, industrial sludge, it all poured into the water, and people still drank from it. They had no choice. Cholera tore through the slums with silent fury, striking rich and poor alike. Doctors had no idea why. Some blamed bad air. Others thought it was divine punishment, but one man, Dr. John Smo, noticed something peculiar. The deaths clustered around a single water pump on Broad Street, and when he had the pump handle removed, the deaths stopped. He had traced the outbreak not to sin, or weather, or curses, but to sewage leaking into a well. It was one of history's first battles between truth and denial. And for once, truth won, but it had taken thousands of corpses to make people listen. That tragedy triggered what became known as the Great Stink of 1858, when the heatwave baked the sewage-soaked Thames to the point that Parliament fled the stench. It wasn't the deaths, or the disease, that spurred action. It was the smell. The powerful couldn't breathe. Only then was modern plumbing born. Engineer Joseph Bazalgette built an underground labyrinth of sewers so advanced, parts of it are still in use today. Iron and steam carried away what stone and silence once tried to ignore. And now here we are, in the sanitized, porcelain glow of the 21st century. Flush toilets, touchless faucets, air fresheners with floral scents that mask the biological truth underneath. We like to believe we're clean, that we've risen above the primal shame of our ancestors. But even now, half the planet still lacks safe sanitation. Millions defecate in the open. Waste continues to poison rivers. Children die from diseases solved centuries ago. And the great cycle flush, forget, ignore goes on, because the history of toilets isn't just about pipes or pots. It's about us, about how civilizations measure dignity, how they confront the body, how they treat the invisible things we all carry. It's a mirror, one we rarely dare to look into. But perhaps we should.